I am so happy today to have with us as our guest Pi Isis. And she's going to talk about her company, which I am extremely interested in learning more about. And then we'll talk about her challenge she'd like to discuss. Welcome, Pi.
Thank you, Vicki. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so glad you are here. Thank you so much for coming.
Absolutely.
Would you share with the audience a little bit about your business?
Sure. The company is called PS314, and I like to refer to it as a matchmaking agency for social change. So I started this company because I needed it. I was looking for a solution for myself as an impact producer. I was working on a documentary film. I knew that it had a lot of power behind it. The story could really help people, educate them more about race in America. And at the same time, I had to think about it actually doing well, right? Making money, having a distribution partnership. And so I was basically looking for a company that could help me do good and do well at the same time. And so oftentimes we think about nonprofits being in the world of doing good exclusively. And then we think about the for-profit arena as really being the ones who are doing well financially. But I'm a believer that you actually can do both and you can do them well. And so that's what my company does. It really supports as many social justice leaders as possible. Any individual who's working towards equity in this world, we want to empower them and build their capacity.
So if you have, for a company perspective, is it that you're trying to educate the company on a particular issue to move the ball forward? Is that what you do when you talk to corporations?
Well, what's interesting is, so I started the company thinking I'm only going to work with artists, right? Those are the ones who need me.
Yeah.
I was an artist. I needed me.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I started to solve so many other problems. So my client base is actually for-profits who have a double bottom line, thinking about humanity, thinking about how we consider equity in our work, in our culture, in our practice, nonprofits who are really struggling, usually with one of two areas, money, finances, right? So that they can do the work that they need to do. And oftentimes the majority of people who are working in this space towards social good, social justice work are underinvested. So they usually have an operating budget of $500,000 or less. 78% of nonprofits doing this work have that. So, I want to think about how do you really help them be sustainable? I guess the other wedge that we come into nonprofits with has to do with people. So it could be a cultural dynamic internally, or it could be that they're not really engaging the audience or community that they're serving. We try to think about their ecosystem as those who are impacted, interested, or invested. And then we have a community of social entrepreneurs, activists, and artists who are individuals who have really great ideas and they just don't know how to get from point A to B. So it's really about building a strategic plan for an individual as well. So we kind of run the gamut. It's really expanded over the last 7 years. So I had a vision, and then the work started to kind of breed even more, and it grew organically. I think what's interesting, after 2020's racial reckoning, there became more of a clear conversation around what equity meant internally. And that was not just in the corporate side, it was also in the nonprofit sector. I think for a long time, we often see that those who are receiving services or support would be a certain group, and then those who are investing would be a different group. And we want to address that directly and eliminate the hierarchy where we overvalue philanthropy and we undervalue the work. If anything, the work is actually much more important and should be valued more. And I feel that way about the for-profit and the nonprofit world. And I think, to your point about the Great Resignation, Vicki, a lot of it has to do with the culture and who we are valuing. And in terms of diversity, I think diversity of perspectives is really critically important. If we have all of the same thinking, we're not going to move forward. I think it's really important to explore where some of our biases come from. So for us, we think through how do we create a very safe space for our clients, meaning that you can ask what you might assume to be the scary or the dumb questions. We want to get you a little bit closer towards the equity space that we all want to live in. We're not going to see it in our lifetime, but we have to chip away at some of these issues. And so I find that diversity is definitely an issue for both the for-profit and the nonprofit arena. We're starting not to think of ourselves as robots going into work and only thinking about work, but instead really bringing our lived experience to the work itself. And so what we see is in the for-profit arena, we're taking some of those pieces off, right? And we can actually be ourselves. And I think that happened when we were virtual at home. And then in the nonprofit arena, there are many people who are living the same experience that they're fighting for. And they're not compensated for that, but it's leveraged often by those who are invested. And so we try to bring light to certain issues and think about this is another space where you need additional resources. So we're there to be transparent and to really bring authenticity and help you move things forward, especially if you're not living the experience. So we go beyond just the idea of diversity and really think about, well, what are the issues that are the pain points internally? And how do we unpack that a little bit so we can have a better culture that supports not only the work you want to do, so everybody understands what they're doing to support the vision. If you're an administrative assistant, if you're a grant writer, if you're the CEO, everyone has a place. And we don't want it to be hierarchical. We want it to be completely welcoming and that we really value everyone's input in the work. And so we do that with the nonprofit and the for-profit clients. Well, we are now 7 years old, which I'm very proud of.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We made it through 2020, which I was very happy about. That was year 5, and that was a tough one. We have completed 90 projects. We are in 15 regions around the country. We're virtually based. We have about 45 consultants within our roster and about 47, 50 clients within our roster. And, you know, as I mentioned, we've worked on a multitude of equity issues and solved many of them with our organizations, really empowering them. And there's so many impact points that I can speak to that have supported the development of our consultants as well as our clients. And my business model is one that addresses what I talked about earlier as it relates to many of our clients are operating with a $500,000 budget or less. So that means I have a sliding scale fee structure. And that also means that the majority of my consultants are all independent contractors who have their own practice. I reinvest 65% of our revenue in their work. So we've done about 4.5 revenue overall. And so 65% is really put into these businesses that are primarily women of color led. So when I think about the space of equity and humanity, that's a core value that we started with and we maintain. And because of all of this work that we've done, we're no longer simply experts in philanthropy and storytelling, organizational development, which is part of our theory of change and how we can empower our clients. We've learned a lot. We've learned a lot about these equity issues. And so I feel that it's now time to become a thought leader in the space, not simply a service provider.